Sega-style magazine-fed shotguns are nothing new. But because they offer so many advantages over tube-fed magazines or manually operated pump-action designs, they continue to persist in the market. And if you've seen my review on a Sega-style shotgun, you have a pretty good understanding of what goes into this design. But after I released that review, I saw a lot of commenters mentioning durability and longevity of these components. And a lot of those guys were referencing forum topics on the AK files. And so I was concerned about this too. I don't want to tell you guys, hey, it's a good product, and then find out a few months later that, well, after 600-700 rounds, it's not such a good product. So rather than just say, well, this is a new version, a different gun, I'll be honest with you, this is a very similar gun. It's made in the same factory from what I understand, and the tolerances, dimensions, everything seems to be the same other than quality control. So did SDS imports with their Cheetah 12 really step up the game? Well, let's find out and take a closer look at the SDS imports Cheetah 12 gauge semi-automatic shotgun. Before I get into the issues with the gun, let's do a quick refresher on the features of the Cheetah 12. Now, it's a long stroke, piston-driven, semi-automatic, magazine-fed shotgun. It ships with a single 5-round magazine, but can utilize standard Sega-type magazines, including those from SGM Tactical. Now, the controls on the Cheetah are similar, but not identical to those found on Sega shotguns and rifles. So while it retains the same paddle release for magazines, the fire selector is now ambidextrous and reminiscent of the AR-15s, instead of the giant oversized lever commonly seen on Kalashnikov-type rifles. Additionally, while original Sega shotguns lacked a proper bolt hold-open button, the Cheetah has a small button inside the trigger guard that does just that, but it does not function as a release as well. Now, this might seem trivial to shooters who don't have much experience in detachable magazine-fed shotguns, but loading a full magazine against a closed action is infuriating at best. This is because of the extra width and the spring tension on the top round, because it interferes with the magazine lockup. So trying to get that front lip inside of the magazine well is ridiculously frustrating. Thankfully, like I said, you can now lock the bolt open and insert the magazine with very little resistance. Lastly, the Cheetah uses an aperture-style Peep rear sight that's mounted on the dust cover. Now, normally mounting optics or anything on a dust cover is a bad idea because it doesn't tend to hold zero. Thankfully, there are 3 different locking guiding pegs attached to the recoil assembly to prevent the dust cover from walking off. Personally, I like this setup better than either standard shotgun bead sights or AK posted notch ones. In the former, because these sights are much easier to use with slugs, and because personally Peep sights are much faster for me to acquire a proper sight picture with. Which is why this review is going to address the main issue some shooters were experiencing with their imported shotguns and see if they still persist the Cheetah 12. Okay, so what's the issue? On some of the first generation shotguns, the bolt itself seemed to be made of either incorrectly heat-treated steel or just overly soft steel. Remember, they're imported from China and made of Chinese steel. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean the guns are good or bad. It just means that without stateside quality control, it's difficult to determine either way. All right, but how can someone tell if they've gotten a lemon or not, and how can I personally check and ensure the longevity of this test gun? Well, in this case, the telltale sign that bad steel was used in the bolt is either peening on the bolt's face or cracks on the bolt lugs. Some shooters reported that these issues popped up after a few hundred rounds of full-powered defensive ammunition, while others said the damage was even visible after 100 rounds of even lighter ammo like birdshot. Now, I wanted to make sure these new guns were better, but I didn't necessarily want to fire hundreds upon hundreds of rounds of defensive ammo and kill my shoulder. So to accelerate the wear and tear and see if I could get the gun to fail prematurely, I set the gas system to wide open, a setting normally used for lighter loads like birdshot. This produces the most amount of felt recoil and the largest recoil impulse inside the gun, and I ran 120 rounds of full-powered Hornady Critical Defense double-aught buck. Then I ran 30 additional rounds of 2 3/4-inch Critical Defense slugs. So I continued and fired an additional 300 rounds of 2 3/4-inch No. 8 lead from Winchester. Now, as you can see, there's no significant wear on the bolt, and the lugs look fine. Really, I'm not surprised. The folks behind these imports have never had an issue with customer service. Just Q&A. And even then, that was only on guns that they personally didn't build. Look, overall, this is still going to be a Sega-style shotgun. And anybody out there who's ever ran a Russian one or a Chinese one or any variation thereof understands the limitations of these firearms. They tend to be fairly ammunition sensitive, like basically all semi-automatic shotguns. And the core aspect of reliability normally lies in the magazines. That said, it does look like the guys at SDS Imports have gone above and beyond to fix a lot of the quality control issues, especially those associated with heat treating that existed in a gun that shares more than just its heritage with the Cheetah 12. Thanks guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more burst reviews.